Hello, Cassie Brown here. I am thrilled to welcome you to the Brace for Impact podcast. I've been incredibly blessed to work with and coach some of the top entrepreneurs, CEOs, and marketers in the industry. And do you know the one thing that they all had in common? They didn't wait for the perfect time, but hit the ground running. They learned to see opportunity in motion and just leap. I created this podcast to help other entrepreneurs own their calling, expand their influence, get uncomfortable, embrace the growth of the journey to leave an impact on the world around them. For those who are ready to stop playing it small, to pick up the mantle of contribution that our clients in the world so desperately need. If that's you, then get ready to brace for impact as I share with you the top strategies, real truths, and hacks to crash through the obstacles and arrive in alignment of integrity, impact, and income. It's time to initiate the ripple effect of change. Hi, this is Cassie Brown, and today we are going to be diving into my origin story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I am going to record it into 3 separate parts just because it does get a bit emotional. So I need a clear path, and we're going to piece them all together for you in this episode. So it may just be a tad longer than what you're used to, but it's definitely a difficult story, but it needs to be told. So let's get started. All right. So the first part of the good, the bad, and the ugly is obviously the good. So I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of pretty much growing up in an entrepreneur family. We had a small business that essentially overtook the front foyer kind of living room part of the house that I grew up in. When you walked through the front door, you would pass through a ton of desks and phone ringing and all of that good stuff. So it was pretty much just no question in my mind that I understood what business was and how important it was in putting food on our table as a family. But it didn't really start or end there. My parents were divorced, and that really shaped me a lot as a child because it was not the typical divorce. It was very amicable. They got along, and many times over the years we celebrated birthdays and holidays and had cookouts and all of that stuff. And my dad and my stepdad would actually be tending to the grill together, joking and laughing. So as a kid growing up and seeing that people could really put their differences aside, it was incredible. Yeah, I am so thankful for that. So continuing on, I was a really good student. I was really self-motivated and driven to get good grades. I was just the classic American high achiever, I guess. And, I was in the gifted program since the 2nd grade, which is another thing that really greatly affected me because I was able to keep the same teacher through 2nd grade all the way up until graduating high school, even going back and visiting her during college. And after I got married, she made that much of an impact on my life. Her name was Miss Cushman, and she taught us to lead with our hearts, always think outside the box, be creative, absolutely 1000%, like think for ourselves, but make sure you've done the research and you've got several objective opinions to be able to back it up before you form yours. So I went through school. I met and married my high school sweetheart, still married through today. Adam is absolutely such an incredible blessing, and was the captain of my sports teams. I did volleyball and softball. And because of the legislation that was passed to make sure that the girls' sports had an even participation rate as boys' sports, they even added a girls' bowling team. So I was on the girls' bowling team. So even though the percentages matched, it was still the same group of 8 to 12 of us who did absolutely everything. And that did form a lot of who I was. Just the drive and the commitment and the teamwork. And just always, being there to lift someone else up and knowing that you had to put in the time and the hard work and the practice to be able to show up on game day. So that was pretty much it, like straight through. I did everything I was supposed to do, got good grades, got into college. I did dual enrollment early so that within 2 years of graduating high school, I already had my 4-year degree. I majored in business with an undergrad in marketing. So, woohoo, I'm actually doing work within the field that I graduated with, and went on straight through to get my MBA. So, pretty much hit the ground running at 19 and had my first full-time job while I was going to college and working with an incredible company, the Pillsbury Company, literally the one that's in the refrigerated aisle in the Doughboy commercials. Yeah, that was what I got to do, and it was amazing. Just thanks to growing up in the family that I did and having that small business. We had a small marketing business where we did the grand openings and promotions for Publix and Walmart. And so, the people that were in the store passing out the samples, that was me. And honestly, I really believe that's how I learned to pretty much talk to anybody and have like an open-ended question conversation. And I loved brightening people's day. Obviously, I was giving them free food, but at the same time, like people loved having attention and a discussion. So that's where my love for relationship marketing really can be sourced back to, in all honesty. My first job was a Sylvester the Cat costume at one of those grand openings. And I'll never forget this day because I think I was maybe between 12 and 14. And my mom, when you're a character costume, you have a normal person escorting you and you're in the costume. So my mom had stepped away to, I don't know, go help somebody or something. And these kids had found me and absolutely just backed me in the corner and like was teasing and kicking and pushing. And of course, like you had to stay in character. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't say anything. I can't do anything. And then my mom finally comes back and takes care of it. But yeah, I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But it did open the door for the Pillsbury Company. So fast forward back to the Pillsbury Company. I was working there full time, going to college. Adam and I got married after I graduated with my 4-year, and I finished my MBA during our first couple of years of marriage. But by that time, the Pillsbury Company had dissolved their sales force. So I was super bummed because I absolutely loved that company, but we were absorbed by another company who took over that role. It was a food broker, and I didn't really have much experience outside of the Pillsbury Company. I knew that food brokers were notorious for coming in when things like essentially budgets needed to be saved, so they could outsource the sales role and the maintenance of the accounts versus keeping those jobs internal. So that's what had happened. So here we are with a new food broker. I was on the fast track for management with Pillsbury, hit the ground running with the new company, was training my team on systems and how I managed the account, had great relationships with all of my accounts. And I would have to say maybe about 6 months into it, transferred to a new team, to the Walmart team, and took the move from Jacksonville, Florida to Orlando, Florida. So in this new territory, pretty much repeated everything that I had already done. I really just, loved creating the relationships with the accounts and managing that territory. And so we were pretty much left to do our jobs and very independent, so long as all of the stuff that was done checked off and our reports were due by Friday. So that was pretty much my routine. And it went well for a little while until our direct manager got a new boss. And when she came in, it was one of those things where some things needed to change. So we had a team meeting, we flew out to meet for that. And this is kind of where the red flags kind of first started. And so up to this point, like everything was good. I had done everything by the book, walked the line, and my dream was pretty much go to school, get good grades, graduate, get a good job with corporate America, take any promotion that I could, and then hopefully retire one day. So this was the actual first kind of red flag that, well, hold on a second, like my life that I had planned out, like might not work the way that I thought that it was going to. So we had a team meeting, and at that point in time, I didn't do much flying. So just through a conversation, I had mentioned that I had to take Dramamine on the flight to not experience motion sickness. And I also had a cold, so I was drinking warm tea with honey. And later on at the evening event that we had, just to kind of wrap up our training, was a very casual team dinner. And a few of my teammates were joking and laughing, and I actually gave one of them a high five. Well, that's kind of the beginning of the end. And shortly after returning from this team meeting, I got a call from my direct reporting boss that he needed to talk to me about some behavior. And as he explained to me, our new director was concerned about how I would be able to travel around and manage accounts and meet with upper management and all of this type of stuff with the goals that I had if I had to take Dramamine every time I was on a flight, and that I got sick when I traveled, and that my high five at the team dinner was completely inappropriate. And at this point, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone as he was saying this to me over this phone call. And there had been other things that had been popping up with micromanagement and the way that we were managing our accounts, and literally calling in to leave a voicemail when we got to an account and then calling in again to a voicemail when we left the account. It just made me realize this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. At this point, I was in my early 20s, probably 21, 22, and it was like, no, I have the choice to choose something different. So I did. I put in my 2 weeks notice, and even at the exit interview, like, he asked if I would write a letter and explain why I was leaving because of the micromanagement and the changes in, the director's position and what it's been doing to our team. But at that point, I wasn't going to burn any bridges because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I knew what I did not want to do. And I certainly wasn't going to work for a company that did not value people or independence or just, the empowerment of their employees to do a great job and manage their territory and just celebrate that, especially how devoted I was to the company and to creating systems and to helping everyone do their jobs better and with more passion. It just became clear that I wasn't going to manage the way they wanted us to manage. I wasn't going to lead the way they wanted us to lead. I was not going to just toe the corporate line and I don't know, maybe this wasn't a corporate culture. Maybe this was just an isolated event, but it opened my eyes absolutely to what I did not want. So that ends our chapter of the good. Basically, just the simpleness of growing up and seeing what you thought was doing everything right by the book and what everybody taught you to do, and then realizing, wait a second, this is not what I want, and realizing that you did have a choice to control the future. So I'm going to stop there, and now we'll move into the bad. Okay, so here we go with the bad. From the good, you saw that I did everything by the book. I went to school, I got good grades, I graduated, went to college, got an amazing job, and thought I was set for corporate America until I retired, and then I could actually live my life. We ended the good with the realization that, wait a second, I have a choice beyond corporate America and what was laid out in front of me. So at this point, it's like heaven opened up, the clouds parted, and the angels start to sing like, I am in complete control of my future, right? So now we transition into part 2 of the bad. And it didn't all start out bad. It started out really, really good and really encouraging. So when I left the company, I came back to Jacksonville, Florida, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. So I went back to work with our family business And working with my mom, I put in systems for the company. We grew it and we scaled it. We expanded our accounts to the point where she was able to sell the company and retire. But that sort of got me back right around to okay, now what? So after she sold the company, and I had several conversations with my husband about what's next, what are we going to do? He suggested, you've always loved taking pictures and you're really passionate about it and you're really good at it. So why don't you create your own photography business? And part of my mom's retirement was an investment in an old historic house in Folkestone, Georgia, that we were going to transition for a wedding and event venue. And she had already been meeting with some vendors and seen several portfolios. And she was like, Cassie, he's right. Why don't you put together your portfolio? I've seen your work. Your work looks just as good as theirs, and just put together some small packages to get you started. So there it was in front of me, but I was scared. I did not go to school for photography. I went for business and marketing. I did not have the guts to go to the School of Arts. Like I probably, like, part of me still wishes that I had, but whatever. At this point, it was done and I wasn't going back. I knew I wasn't going back to school to be certified as a master photographer, whatever the labels were going to be. But I knew I needed to expand my knowledge base outside of just hobbyist. So I was really, really fortunate that there was a nature workshop in Folkestone, Georgia, around the Okefenokee Swamp, that a nationally award-winning National Geographic photographer was putting on a workshop. And I was like, well, that's great, because I can take pictures of flowers and animals, and and I don't have, anybody that'll cry or run away if I mess up. So I booked the workshop that I want to say is even less than $100, which was also in my favor, because at the time, professional photography workshops were going anywhere from, $1,600 to $2,500 a day. And at that point, I didn't even know what I needed to learn or what they would teach me. So just that fear of investing that level of money and not really knowing or having the confidence in me to walk away with what I needed to run my business. So I went with the $100 nature photography workshop. And I just soaked it all in for those couple of days. I came home and I shared all about what I had learned, the pictures that I'd taken, edited my heart out in Photoshop. And just through conversation, my husband asked me, what did your instructor shoot with? What kind of equipment was he using? And the nerd in me, of course, was just able to rattle everything off that he shot with. It's like this model and that model and this flash and all of this type of stuff. And later on that evening, my husband passed me an Amazon receipt, and I'll never forget it. He's like, here's all of your new equipment. Now go pay for it. And that changed things. That was him putting 100% full faith in me and growing this business. And I went after it. After he had done that, I did have the confidence to put those packages together for my mom. My first photography package was like $900 to shoot a wedding with the CD, with the engagement, you name it, I threw it in there because I was just excited to have the work. And then I just got to work, and I inserted myself in the photography community, the wedding vendor community, networked my heart out, and quickly learned that was not a lot of money, and I was doing a ton of work, and I needed to raise my prices. And so through the support of my husband in those communities, I was able to grow my business word of mouth, and it was just phenomenal. I absolutely loved it, and it was incredible just to be part of somebody's future. This is the day that every girl dreams about. Every mom knows, this day's going to come, whether it's her son or her daughter. So for me, it was crazy special to get to pray with those families right before the bride walked down the aisle and have those images that they would cherish for a lifetime. So I really felt like I had stepped into my calling, and this was my mission. So still, You're probably thinking, like, wait a second, this is supposed to be the bad part. We'll get there. So things were going well. My husband at that point in time had a phenomenal job, and we got the opportunity to move to North Georgia, just north of Atlanta, to be close to one of his customers that he called on. And we just took it. We took the opportunity, and we moved. At that point in time, we had Hudson, Noah, and McKaylee. Hudson and Noah, I think Noah was probably around 4.5. Hudson was around 5.5, and McKaylee it was just over 1. Like, all of them had kind of just had their birthdays, and we moved that summer. So that summer we moved, and that fall, our neighborhood had a fall festival. And Adam was working on some stuff around the house, wasn't quite ready to go, and the kids had just been counting it down all day long. So we packed up. I went ahead and took him, and, he just was going to finish up some stuff, maybe meet us later, but it didn't matter. Like, the kids wanted to go do the hay rides, play the games, get the candy. I think they even had a chili cook-off, and it was so much fun. We got our face painted. I think Hudson had like a snake. McKaylee had a butterfly. I think I ended up with a dragon on my face. I don't even know now. There was glitter involved, so I'm wondering if that was a butterfly as well. But regardless, like, it was just an incredible time. And Adam ended up staying home. He mowed the grass, settled down, and was just tired. So he went to bed. We got back a little bit late. He was already asleep. So the kids, the boys anyway, their tummy was upset. So I let them make a little pallet in our bathroom and went to bed. Like, this was just simple, normal weekend, like, with kids. Like, that was our family time. But that was also the last completely normal day. Early that morning, I woke up to Adam having what I thought was a stroke, but it turned out it was a seizure. And I had never seen one of those before in my life. So it was pretty scary. And to make matters worse, my phone was downstairs, the house phone was downstairs, and his BlackBerry was on the nightstand. So I had never been able to get that dang thing to unlock and work for me to be able to call, anyone, much less 911. And in the panic, I just gave up on it. Like, after a couple of seconds of trying to navigate the buttons, and I ran downstairs. I got my phone in one hand, the house phone in the other, and I dialed 911, and I dialed my older sister. And that was pretty much the only thing that I could work out to do in my mind. I was completely overwhelmed. But I'm so thankful because my sister was able to talk me through exactly what I needed to answer the questions for the 911 operator, and just kind of at least get myself together to where I was at least able to get dressed and wash the rest of the glitter face paint off by the time they arrived to load Adam in the ambulance. And I remember it was so scary because when they got there and they got him set up, he was just so confused, more so than I'd ever seen him. But just after watching the seizure and the color leave his face and his eyes and it roll and his lips curl, it was one of those things that I'll never forget. So it was so grateful just to see him sit up, even though he was confused, even though it was hard for him to answer their questions, just for him to sit up. I was like, God, thank God he's alive. So they loaded him up in the ambulance, and my sister had given me clear instructions, bless her heart, to let Adam go in the ambulance. She would come for the kids, and my brother-in-law would drive me to the hospital. So that's what I did. at that point, I was really good at following instructions because I couldn't problem solve to save my life. So that I'm going to stop right there as for the bad, and I'll carry over part 3 and the ugly. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. I hope you've received value, encouragement, and exactly what you need to help keep you in momentum to grow and impact the world around you. Big or small, we all make a difference. Thanks also for subscribing, downloading, and leaving a review. This helps us reach others who need this message in their life. If you know anyone who would benefit from this podcast, please share so you and I can help more people boldly step into purpose. It is my heart's mission to help and encourage others. My internal belief that a rising tide lifts all ships. So much of what we talk about on the podcast is leading with value and building relationships through service. So we've created a collection of resources for you to continue growing, whether you are just getting started or ready to scale your business. Visit amplifymyimpact.com for show notes, downloads, programs, and more information about how to directly work with our team to amplify your impact and change the world.